Hello, I'm Will and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to review the ASICS NOVABLAST. Now, I have to admit I've been a little bit shallow when it comes to ASICS. I think these actually look pretty cool for ASICS shoes, that is, but hey, that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people out there like them. This is the first one that sort of caught my eye. I think the shape looks pretty aggressive. It looks quite sleek and fast. It's got this sort of cool etching on the side. I don't know if you can see that. I think it looks pretty different to the normal ASICS lineup. Apart from the orange laces, which I'm not a fan of, this is the one that I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. Now, I'm not going to get too technical in my reviews. They're just going to be sort of everyday runner. How do they feel? How do they perform in training? And if you want all that stats and intricate little things that I know a lot of runners want, and then I'll probably put it in the description or I'll put it on the screen. Now, I picked these up at £120. Now, you may find them cheaper elsewhere, but I got it directly from the ASICS site, and actually the delivery was really slow. It took about 2 weeks, but hey, I'm not complaining. Pandemic and all. So this is the first ASICS shoe that I've ever owned. I have ran in them before at product testing events, and I was never too keen on them. Like I said before, I was a little bit snobby with the looks, but now this kind of got me interested. I'll let you know how it first felt and how it feels now and how it performed over training. So what is the triple F on these? The triple F, the first fit feel. So how did these feel when I first put them on? Well, let me tell you, these shoes have a huge stack height. The first thing you absolutely notice is the amount of cushioning on these shoes. When I first put these on and started just bouncing in the hallway, I was like, you know, these are actually bouncier than the Nike Next Percents. I'm like, holy Christ. The feeling of them is just incredible. When you first put them on, it's just, you are going to bounce down that road. It doesn't feel like a bulky shoe, but you definitely know and feel like there's a wedge of foam right under you. The toe box is really wide. If you've got wide feet, then I think you'd probably order true to size. I don't think you'd have to size up because there's a generous amount here. Your feet can just kind of spray out. And you might even want to size down if you have narrow feet, because some people don't like that sort of extra room. I don't mind it. I quite like it. For me, it seems to fit quite well. So the upper of the NOVABLAST, I believe it's just an engineered mesh and with a few overlays, which is just the kind of ASICS logo and a few little patterns on the side here, but nothing major. One on the heel cup here as well to give it that little bit of sturdiness. Now, I will go into the pros and cons of the shoe later, but just to mention, when I first felt the tongue, it felt quite thin, and you could feel like as you were lacing it up and you were tightening to get that lockdown, you did feel like the laces were pushing in on some spots on the side here, and I had to readjust. That was the triple F. That was the first fit feel without running in it, just in my hallway. Initial thoughts straight away. So what are the pros of the ASICS NOVABLAST? Let's get into that right now. So just checking on my Strava, it looks like I've put around 269 kilometers on these already. So that's a good amount of time to test these shoes with all sorts of different types of runs. Easy runs with a little bit of tempo in them, some strides at the end of easy runs, recovery runs, a little bit of everything really. Not so much the interval work. I have another shoe for that, and that will come later in another episode. What is the greatest thing about these shoes? Well, let me tell you now. Like I mentioned before in the first fit feel, it is the bounce effect and the cushioning you get from these shoes. Right away, it's the number one thing that stands out. It's like being on trampolines. And I've watched some other reviews from other channels of these, some great reviews out there, and they all mention the trampoline effect, and it is real. It is absolutely real. And yes, I think they're even more bouncier than the Next Percents, but different from the Next Percent bounce. It's a different bounce. The next pro of the ASICS NOVABLAST, outsoles. So they call it the ASICS High Abrasion Rubber, and I have to admit, after 269 km, the soles look pretty good. So I think ASICS have done a great job on the rubber with these. I think they're going to last quite a long time. I mean, 269 kilometers on these, and they look fantastic for that sort of mileage and the terrain as well. I did take it on some off-trail sort of rocky routes, and yeah, I think they've handled it absolutely perfectly. I think another pro I definitely have to mention, like earlier, the weight of these. They're not a heavy shoe. In my size UK 7, it is about 260 grams, I believe. Around that. I do have my own custom insole in here. Custom insole? No, it's not a custom insole, it's just a flat cheap insole that I wear in all my shoes. So just like anything in life, there is good and there is bad. So let's move on to the cons of the ASICS NOVABLAST. Now, I've taken these on some various terrains, you know, when you're in the park maybe and you go off on a little trail or something like that, even grass, steps, twisting, turning, stopping. I've taken it in many situations, and these shoes are not great for any sort of stableness whatsoever. With that much squish into the sole, there's always something that's going to give. The squish is just so squishy that you just don't feel things underneath, and sometimes when you don't have that ground feel, you don't know when to brace and when to accelerate, decrease the speed. You kind of just go in and you're not feeling anything. So it's almost like you're not feeling the dangers of the ground, which you really need to feel when you're going, especially if you're going to go pick up the pace in this, if you're going to go fast. So if you are going to pick up the pace in the NOVABLAST, I would definitely stick to the sort of pavements that are flat, long, easy, nothing too crazy. I actually nearly rolled my ankle inwards when I was going through the woods at some pace, which I don't do anymore. I don't really do speed work in this shoe anymore. Even grass, absolutely horrendous on grass. You'll just feel like you're running on marshmallows. So if you are new to running and you are looking for beginner shoes, there are sort of three types of running kind of cycles that people have in their form. So one is when you're neutral and you land pretty much straight on, and then you might have heard something called overpronation, which means you kind of roll your ankle inwards, so it puts a little bit of pressure on your ankle as you hit the ground. And there's a third one called supination, which means you actually roll to the outer side of your foot. For a neutral runner, it really is gonna suit you well. If you do tend to kind of lean in on your ankle, then you know this is not going to be a good shoe for you. Definitely I wouldn't buy it if you suffer from overpronation. Now for me, another con is definitely the tongue and the laces, how they feel through when you lock that shoe down. The tongue is quite thin, it's not too thin, it's not too thick, but you do feel that sort of when the laces push down, it pushes these two little hard pieces into the top sides of your feet. Now I have watched reviews and no one else has mentioned this, so again it's probably just my feet. Before I go running in these ASICS, I make sure I get the exact lockdown feel I want. So to sum up the ASICS NOVABLAST, these are the sort of shoe that you get if you want that sort of supreme cushioning on your foot. This is not a shoe that you feel the ground at all. So the performance of these shoes was definitely the best in the sort of long, easy runs with a little bit of tempo in them, where you wanted to pick up the pace a little bit and just keep going. I have to say they performed amazingly for that. Absolutely amazing for that, and that's the sort of shoe I was trying to pick up when I did get interested in the ASICS NOVABLAST. Basically not worry about my feet hurting, feeling the ground after a certain number of kms, miles. As I got in, I wanted to feel fresh, I wanted my feet to feel comfortable, I didn't want to think about it. Although you can get some good speed, it's that sort of feel, everyone's different. I know some people are getting fantastic feeling from it and going and making some great pace in it. For me personally, I felt it just felt a little bit too much shoe for that. Definitely with this huge chunk of foam on the bottom, I think it feels great, but you know, if you want to pick up the pace, I can think of so many better shoes for that, which I have run in, and I will be reviewing some other shoes later after that for speed work. For the price, I think £120 is just, some people said they feel it's a little bit expensive. for me, I think it hits the spot. I think that's how much I would pay for an ultimate cushion shoe, and it feels like it's going to last. Like I mentioned before, the rubber is looking great after nearly 300 km. I think this is a great shoe for what I want it to do. This shoe is fantastic. Stick to the roads, the even pavements, and you'll be loving it. You'll be bouncing down like a kangaroo. Now, I should mention, this is all my own thoughts, and I'm not being paid for any of this because obviously I'm a nobody and they're not going to pay me to review shoes. If you liked this non-technical review from a sort of average everyday runner perspective, then yeah, please subscribe, like and share, and yeah, stay tuned because more is coming.